Hello again, whiskey friends. Thanks for joining everybody for another blind flight. And this blind flight is going to be very unique. It's the first time I've ever done a blind flight of this. Today, we are getting exclusively into wheat whiskeys. I have seen brands experimenting more and more with wheat whiskey and offering wheat whiskey as a core mash bill in their lineups. For those that aren't familiar, a wheat whiskey is one that is predominantly wheat in the mash bill. A lot of the ones in today's lineup are actually 100% wheat. But I feel like one bottle that really put wheat whiskey on people's radar this year was the Star Hill Farms, coming from Maker's Mark. That one is still on many people's top 10 lists. I have never had it before, but my great whiskey friend Adam Shelton gave me a sample quite a while ago now. And I just never figured out what I wanted to do with that sample. But why not really put Maker's Mark to the test by putting it into a blind? So thank you for joining today, whiskey friends. Let's kick off the show. All right. Well, I got it all randomized, ready to go, but why don't we go through today's lineup? As mentioned off the top, I think the star of today's lineup, at least in terms of name value, is the Star Hill Farms coming from Maker's Mark. Now, this one retails for about $100, though I've seen secondary prices go pretty high on this one. I myself have never seen a bottle of it, so thank you, Adam, for the sample. And this 1 ounce is all I get. This one comes in at 114.7 proof and has a pretty unique mash bill. 51% soft red winter wheat, 27% malted soft red winter wheat, and 22% malted barley. Age statement on this one isn't known, so it's at least 4 years based on what we know off the label. The next one on the lineup is an interesting collaboration I just got my hands on and kind of inspired me to do this particular blind flight. We have another New Riff high note. I've been covering these things all year. New Riff has been spoiling the local area with these drops. This one is a wheat whiskey, 6 years old, and 118.8 proof. Oh man, I just ripped my tag off. Now, this one is unique. It's called the Confluence Project, Volume 1. And it's a collaboration with Chattanooga. And on the website, it doesn't say this on the bottle. It says it's a 100% wheated whiskey built on New Riff's heirloom red turkey wheat, shaped by Chattanooga's signature high malt style. And then what was interesting about this is that New Riff released these all as single barrels. So mine, as I said, is the 118 proof, but I have seen people locally trying to hunt down samples of all the different single barrels out there to try to figure out which one's the best one. I have no idea where mine ranks in that category. So then I had to go through my collection, find 2 other wheat whiskeys I wanted to put up to the test. One that stuck out to me is actually one of my wife's favorites. Shout out to Big League Bourbon. The Fray Ranch 100% wheat whiskey. This one's 6 years, 133 proof. And this one ran me about $100, I believe. Maybe it was up to 120. Oh, and if I didn't say it, the New Riff was about 80. And then the last one, shout out to Stu, but this is one of my favorite wheat whiskeys of all time. The Corseps Whips and Whiskey, coming out of Journeyman Distillery in Michigan. This one is 117 proof. And I believe this was about 5 years old when Stu gave me this one. So I thought that was an interesting lineup, comparing these. We'll see if the Star Hill Farms really does emerge and get that kind of top 10 whiskey status of 2025 many people are attributing to it. Or does New Riff outdo it with its interesting heirloom red turkey wheat? Or maybe it's one of the wheat whiskeys that's been around for a while. And as we go through this, I'm going to use a graphic in the top corner here to let you know if I'm sampling A, B, C, or D and help us keep track of things. We'll go through the nose, then we'll do a palate round. But ultimately, the way I like to do things is to slowly eliminate samples out of the Royal Rumble, hit them over the top rope, they are out of there. Gives many of these samples just one chance to stick out. Let's see what emerges for today's winner. We are going to start on the nose of Glass A. Cheers, everybody. Thank you for joining me this far. If you're still here, hit that like and subscribe. We are coming out with this type of content week after week after week to help you keep up with all the latest releases. The nose on A has a little bit of bright fruit trying to shine through, kind of in the range of an apple to a stewed apple, but its DNA is really just giving me like a sourdough, fresh bread kind of a note with a little bit of a white pepper underneath it. Interesting way to start out. I don't know how I feel about A right now. Moving on to B. Nose of B is wildly different here. I even got like an initial shade of a sesame seed and even like almost a teriyaki like sauce. I'm gonna have to break that down a bit more, but that caught me a little off guard. Yeah, there's something very savory about this one. If not teriyaki sauce, more of like an olive oil vinegar blend that you'd have at an Italian restaurant that you're dipping the bread into, but still very bready at its core. All right, now in the nose on C. C is by far the fruitiest one. Still in that apple range like we were talking about with it, but maybe even drifting into some stewed pears with those apples, but still bright leaning overall. Getting like a hint of a Play-Doh. I wonder if that's a marker for Maker's Mark. So we'll see. We'll see on that one later. But that's something that I do get from Maker's Mark sometimes. But yeah, it has this underlying almost fresh clay like quality to it. All right. Then the last one, we're getting into D. Oh, D's profile is actually unmistakable. D is going to be the Fray Ranch, everybody. That butter popcorn note is the marker there. I probably should have known before I put it in here. I forgot how distinctive that Fray Ranch weeder can be. But man, I am getting just straight up movie theater style butter. And considering the notes that we talked about on the other three, none of the other ones had movie style butter on it. All right, we'll see if I'm right on that or I'm going to make a fool of myself, but we'll get the reveal later. Well, after the nosing round, maybe C and B elevated themselves the most. There was that unique savoriness on B compared to the fruits that were going on C. But the noses and everything, now let's get into the palate round. Going back to A, get into the first sip here. Here's everybody. A is lovely. Lots of vanilla custard, goes into a little bit of that white pepper that I called out on the nose, especially on the finish. Little bit of burnt sugars getting into almost a creme brulee like feel to it. Not a whole lot else calling out to me, but I really did enjoy that first sip. All right, on to B. Yeah, still on the nose. I'm getting that savoriness. Let's see if that translates to the palate. Yeah, dark, savory, though towards the end of the finish, the fruits really do emerge almost in like a plum kind of a range. It's a very surprising and delicious note there. If not a plum, still like dried fruits. I'm still thinking savoriness, thinking about notes that are essentially on a charcuterie board with all the garnishes that are around the cheese and some of those dips and oils with the bread and the crackers and all. B's very interesting. I like B a lot. All right, now on to C. C was the fruitiest on the nose and it's the fruitiest on the palate. I called those fruits brighter on the nose, but they're berries. It's definitely berry forward. What's interesting about this one is the finish on it takes a different turn, more towards the oak profile and baking spices. It definitely has a different kind of journey on it. Still kind of getting that clay note though that I was referring to earlier. I'm still going to be very surprised if C isn't the Star Hill Farms. All right, let's get into D. See if this one tastes like that movie theater popcorn that I was saying on the nose. And it tastes like movie theater popcorn, overwhelmingly so. And it's the highest proof. This one's definitely the Fray. Woo, that lit me up. Woo, that one jumped up 133 proof. I felt every bit of that. Man, it's definitely the oiliest, but very one-dimensional compared to some of the things that are going on the other pours here. So get to think it over a little bit here as we go through that, but sometimes I have to do side-by-sides at this particular point in the competition. But on this one, I do think I have a definitive answer to the one I am going to be releasing from the lineup, and that is number D. Now, I'm saying this one's the Fray Ranch. Let's confirm it with the sticker on the bottom, everybody. There it is, F&R, Fray Ranch. Yep. That profile, no mistaking it. It's actually been kind of interesting on our journey of these. So this one was my first, the single barrel at barrel proof at 133. These typically come in split bottles, 375 milliliters for $50, and they're usually 100 proof. And this is one where I enjoy the lower proof, 100 proof version, more so than what I got on this higher proof single barrel. I debated quite a bit on whether to put one of the 100 proofs in there, but I thought I had to do barrel strength considering what was in this lineup. And this is an example where proof isn't everything in a blind. It actually made this one stick out in more imbalanced ways because of the proof. So that means we have 3 glasses left. I need to reset here a little bit. So while I reset, please listen to this message about our amazing friends over there at Drifting Drams Coffee Company. You might hear about Drifting Drams from our barrel picks, but not only do they know whiskey, they know coffee even better. Katie and Ethan are always bringing in the best coffee they can for this community. And if you enjoy coffee or you are curious about getting into good coffee, you need to check out Drifting Drams. Fancy coffee for regular people. So check out their website to support a small business that is passionate about what they produce. And they will forever change the way that you look at coffee. Yeah, and I can't recommend enough the cigar blend. Go on their website, get that cigar blend. Life-changing. I make it every single weekend. My wife adores it. I think I get yelled at if I make anything else. So we have A, B, and C left, and I've got to make another elimination. And it does pain me to see this one go. I do like this one quite a bit, but the point of the blind is to find a winner. And A, you are gone, my friend. If I were to guess, I do believe this is the Journeyman. So let's see what we got here. There we go. JM for Journeyman. All right. I've had an interesting relationship with these. Some of these are craftier than others, just depending on the single barrel or the blend that you get. But this one from Stu, I have always been a fan of. And Stu can attest. Every now and then, Stu tries to do blends, and he wants me to break down the components of the blends. When he puts Journeyman in it, I call it out almost every single time, almost immediately. Tony Bag of Donuts can attest to this as well. So we're now in a competition between the Star Hill Farms and the new Riff, which inspired this whole video in the first place. Glass B, that I do think is probably the new Riff, was the more savory one with the different elements of a charcuterie board, whereas C is the more fruit-forward berry one. And it does drift into the finish in the elements of what I would describe as fresh clay, a lot of oak, and a darker leaning finish in some aspects, at least in terms of that oak profile. All right, we've got to do a side-by-side here. But just like Highlander, there can be only one, and we've got to chop off the head of one of these whiskeys. Gosh, going back and forth through the noses, man. B is dark side, A is light side. I've got Sith, I've got Jedi. Ugh, we'll see what side we end on. All right, let's go in for one last sip to decide it all. Man, I'm going back and forth here. These play such different rhythms, such different songs in terms of the flavor beats. They both have great mouthfeels. They're both oily. They both have these rich finishes. So this one is coming up to pure flavor profile and preference on this one. There's really nothing I can break down at a technical level that elevates one over the other. I simply have to decide whether I go with the dark side or whether I go with the berries. Man, I keep going back and forth. This is a split decision, but I am going to eliminate one here, mainly because whatever I detect as being that Play-Doh-like note is a turnoff for me. And man, it's subtle. There's so much beautiful stuff going around it, but I keep getting that clay image in my head that does distract me from the flavors. So I am going to eliminate C on this one. We'll see. I think C is the maker mark, but now it's time for the reveal and to see whether I was overconfident from the start. So here we go. And I was overconfident from the start. Look at that. Hell yeah. I like being wrong. All right. So C was the new Riff. Man, I mean, some good berries on this one, but the darker profile and the more interesting profile of Glass B definitely took this one home, which puts our winner at Glass B with the Star Hill Farms. The Star Hill Farms takes it home. Yeah, I really do enjoy the savoriness combined with the fruit elements, the dried fruits. There's a whole lot going on that you can deconstruct in this one. But still, I would describe it as walking through the elements of a charcuterie board without the cheese part of it involved. You know, you're going through the oils and the bread and the dried berries, the fresh berries, even a little bit of a nuttiness to it. Very, very good. And now I understand why people have hyped this one up so much this year. Star Hill Farms takes down New Riff and takes down some of my favorite wheat whiskeys that are on my shelf. So way to go, Maker's Mark. This honestly might be one of my favorite Maker's Mark products That I've gotten to sip on for, man, it might be a couple years now. So let me know what you think in the comments. Were you surprised that the Star Hill Farms took this thing home? What do you think about the other whiskeys in this lineup and the wheat whiskey category in general? And just remember, while you can always find more whiskey, you can never have enough whiskey friends. So take care of those around you, and we'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for watching Hello Again, Whiskey Friends, everybody. A big shout out to our amazing Patreon community. If it wasn't for you, we couldn't continue to produce the content and barrel picks week after week. And for everybody else out there, be sure to hit that like and subscribe. It really helps the channel more than you know. And we'll catch you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody.